In this edition of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, my special guest is Luke Kuechly, Cincinnati born and bred. This guy is instinctive a linebacker as you're ever going to want to meet. He saw it before it happened. One of the most decorated football players that ever played the game. We'll find out what his football life was like at St. X, at Boston College, and the National Football League with the Carolina Panthers. Luke Kuechly, special football player. I get asked a lot about the differences between playing football now as opposed to back in the day when I played. And let me tell you, there are so many differences, it's almost impossible to list them all. But one thing I want to hit on now is back in the day, we had 6 preseason games. 1 year had the Hall of Fame game, had 7 preseason games. None of them counted. They didn't mean anything. 14 regular season games and 7 preseason games. So literally, guys would play themselves into shape for the regular season because they had all that time. 9 weeks of training camp, 2-a-days, 6 preseason games. That 1 year, 7 preseason games. Today, guys are in shape year-round. They have professional trainers. I mean, if they're not working out at Paul Brown Stadium, they're working out at some fitness center with some fitness guru. And it's so different now than it was back in the day. And also, they make so much more money these days that they don't really necessarily have off-season jobs. Back when I played, I had an off-season job every year. I was a substitute teacher. I worked at a savings and loan in the marketing department. I sold industrial adhesives. I sold industrial chemicals. I was trying to eliminate vocations. It was a twofold purpose: to work in the off-season to generate a little bit more income, but also to eliminate things that I might want to do when I was done playing football on a full-time going into my life's work, like Paul Brown used to say, occupation. So there were a lot of reasons to have the off-season job. But I looked at the period that the team is in right now, when all the OTAs and minicamps, we didn't really have OTAs. We had one minicamp, and that was the last time that we were together as a football team with coaches. And then you had like about a 6-week break before training camp, at least a month in most cases. And in that month's time, if you don't do anything, you can get out of shape pretty darn quickly. So to me, that month, that 6 weeks was critical, was pivotal, that more guys tried to stay in shape than not. I really believed that when we had good years, more guys reported to training camp in good shape and worked out during that 4 to 6 week period like they did all year round than taking a vacation as such. Now, I'm not saying that if you're vacationing with your family on Cape Cod for a week that you're going to work out like you did every other week of the year, but you still had to do something. And I did. I ran the beach, found a fitness center, found somebody to work me out at the fitness center if I could arrange that. So it was pivotal to keep yourself in shape year round and all year round. Don't take 2 weeks off, 4 weeks off. All that work that you've done all those other weeks, you can fall out of shape so quickly. And it's a big factor. And I hope that guys right now, as they're deciding what they're going to do, a lot of guys are traveling. A lot of guys have money. They're traveling all over the world. I hope they have some sort of program where they're conditioning themselves, and they're not gone for a long period of time if they don't have a program where they're conditioning themselves, because they'll pay a little bit of a price at the beginning of training camp. There's no question about it. Welcome to this edition of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. We're in the First Star Logistics studio and joined today by a Cincinnati legend. There's no other way to put it. One of the most dominant players in the history of the National Football League. I mean, this guy was an unbelievable defensive football player. One of the best in NFL history, as I said. Excelled stopping the run, excelled blitzing, excelled in coverage. And I think that's the thing that really differentiated you. You were like a safety in coverage. You were like, you didn't have to go to sub packages. I mean, you were a sub package built into one. The legendary Luke Kuechly joins us. Welcome, Luke.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be on here. Got some Cincinnati guys in the same room, so I'm excited for the conversation today.
Yeah, that I'm excited about it as well. Let's go back to even your years before high school. You have two brothers. You have an older brother John and a younger brother Henry, and yourself. You're right in the middle of those two guys. What sports were you guys into? Any and all?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, we played, first sport we played was soccer. So John, my older brother, is a year ahead of me in school. So him and I were always on the same teams growing up, soccer to basketball. And then kind of once we got into the grade school, the way sports are set up, it was third and fourth, fifth and sixth, seventh and eighth, and then on the basketball teams, it was, year by year. So every other year we were on the same football team. Every other year we were on the same lacrosse team. We played a lot of sports together. And then Henry, my younger brother, 7 years younger than I am, and he was a basketball player all throughout high school. So sports were kind of a big part of our family growing up. I got to play a majority of the stuff with John: lacrosse, football, basketball. We played all on the same team. So we grew up together. My parents always came and supported us at games. And when Henry was younger, he kind of got drug along to everything, whether it was a Saturday afternoon, a Sunday game in grade school, a night game during lacrosse in high school. During the week, he was kind of drug along to everything. So give a lot of credit to him, but also to my parents for being there at all our games.
I know you're all avid outdoorsmen. I think I read where you started. You shot birds at age 4. I mean, you were into it at a very young age. Are both your brothers into it as much as you are, hunting deer and fishing and skeet shooting and all that stuff?
Yeah, so when we grew up, my dad loved it. He loved being outside. He loved to hunt. He loved to fish. And kind of the easiest thing for us when we were kids was to bird hunt. And when I was 4, we never shot, but we'd always walk around with my dad. We had a black lab that was a great bird dog. So my older brother John and I would walk with my dad down these cornfields, these corn rows, different kind of little quail habitats, pheasant habitats, and that's how we started hunting. You didn't have to be quiet. You didn't have to be up super early. It was super safe because there was only one person with a firearm. That was my dad. And then it was just fun to watch the dog work. She was more excited than we were to have the opportunity to go hunt. We'd go downstairs, we'd get all of our stuff packed up, and she knew when we were packing things up to go bird hunting, she knew what time it was. So it was just something that we could do as a family, as my dad and John and I. And then when Henry came around, we were still doing it quite a bit, and we kind of transitioned over to fly fishing a little bit more. There's a lot of good opportunities to do that in kind of the northern Ohio area. And it was just something that we kind of all did as a family, and it was fun. It was an opportunity to create memories, and I just enjoy being outside. It's relaxing, it's peaceful, and it's a lot of fun. So we enjoyed it, and everybody grew up doing it, and it's been a lot of fun.
You just returned from a nice trip. Take us through where you were recently here.
Yeah, so a couple of my buddies just went out to Idaho. Jordan Gross, who was our left tackle for 11 years in Carolina, he lives in Idaho. He's from Idaho. He lives about an hour north of Boise. He retired after the 2013 season, then and moved back to Idaho a couple years ago, and he's got his own farm that he started, which is really neat. And then my other buddy Richie Brockel lives in Boise. He was a Boise State Bronco, so he played on the blue turf. And then Brett Nienaber, one of our strength coaches, is a big fisherman, outdoorsman. So we jumped in a plane, flew out to Boise. We went up to Jordan's house, and we did a little float on the lower portion of the Salmon River. So we had a lot of fun. We camped out for a couple of nights, kind of floated down the river. It was a lot of fun. It's so pretty out there. It's something that's so unique to the area. You look where I'm from, Cincinnati, we didn't really have many mountains. And then in North Carolina, you've got the Blue Ridge Mountains, you got Blowing Rock, Boone, Asheville area. But the mountains out west are just so much bigger. They're very different. You've got those big canyons and gorges and the big wide rivers. It's a really pretty place out there. So we definitely enjoyed it.
All right, let's go back to the football side of things. What grade did you start playing football, Luke? Were you like fourth grade, third grade?
Fourth grade, yeah. So fourth grade, so it was the teams are third and fourth, fifth and sixth, seventh and eighth. So I started my fourth grade year, and then my older brother John started his fifth grade year. So we were part of the Olsh Golden Bears. I guess it was St. Xavier Golden Bears when we were playing. So we had a combination of 3 or 4 different schools that made a team, and we started our football career over there at St. Xavier on the fields out there, and that was the start of it with Kevin Harris. He was our coach. He was the best coach you could have had to start playing football. So it was a lot of fun.
Did you always want to play defense, or did you want to run the football, throw the football, catch it?
I didn't want to throw it. I always wanted to play defense. I played a little bit on the offensive side of the ball. There was we had a preseason scrimmage. I think it might have been my 5th grade year where I had to play quarterback, and I don't know what it was. I wasn't very good at it. We had a waggle play. I rolled out to my right, and I was setting up. We had a guy running an over, and I was getting ready to throw, and I got smoked in the back. And after that day, I was just kind of like, you know what, quarterback is not for me. And so as I grew up in grade school football, I played linebacker on defense, and then I played offensive guard on offense. So
all right,
it was a lot. We had a lot of fun. We had 2 protection calls. One was like a zone protection, the other was a man protection, and it was just a bunch of misfits up front just trying to maul some people.
So let's go to your high school career at St. X. Your junior year at St. X, 15-0, and you win obviously the Ohio Division I state championship and a lot of mythical national championships in various polls. What was that season like?
Oh, it was so much fun. You know, it's at St. X, you don't really get an opportunity to play on the varsity until either your junior or senior year because there's such good competition. So, you know, you grow up watching St. X, you get into St. X as a freshman. You know, I didn't play a ton early as a freshman. Then my sophomore year, I played a little bit more, but I played tight end. And then, you know, it's one of those things you always want to have the opportunity to play on the varsity team. You know, Friday Night Lights, Coach Specht, you know, they won the state championship in 2005. And there's just like a really cool energy around the team. And, you know, it was a lot of fun. It was a great experience. We played on national television. We played, you know, in these kickoff classics. We played, you know, all over the place. We played teams from Maryland, Ohio, obviously Kentucky, Indiana. We played teams kind of everywhere. And it was just so fun. The stadium was rocking. We were really good. And we kind of knew early in the season, if we could just stay healthy and not beat ourselves, we had a chance to be special. And Coach Specht did a really good job of keeping everybody level-headed, keeping everybody on the same page. We did have a couple injuries early in the season. Darius Ashley, our starting running back, that was a stud. Yeah. He got hurt. Shoot, I think he might have gotten hurt in preseason. We had a couple guys really step up and play really well. And then Fred Craig, our safety that had been a big-time varsity contributor for 3 years, and he started as a sophomore. He got hurt in practice leading up to the what was that? The semifinal game, and we were able to kind of get him back. Mike Gordon, our trainer, did some magic on his ankle and helped him out. And there was just so many little memories. You think about practices, games. We got to play in Nippert Stadium a couple of times against Moeller. I think we played Coleraine. Yeah. I think we played DeMatha, which was a team from Maryland on ESPN. And, you know, when you're a high school kid, you get to go play at Nippert Stadium on ESPN. Like it doesn't get any better than that. So it was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, it was just so fun walking out on Fridays at St. X and having an opportunity to play.
I got to put my specs on here and make sure that I don't mess this up.
Yeah.
Your statistics: 147 total tackles, 6 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, 2 interceptions. You scored a defensive touchdown that season. I mean, that was the precursor. All of a sudden, man, Luke Kuechly, this kid's a machine. What about Luke Kuechly? I mean, did you if I'm not mistaken, didn't you play a little bit of defensive back at some point in your high school career? And did that benefit you big time in your coverage ability as a linebacker?
Yeah, so the best position on the defense, I think, is for specs defense is called the adjuster. So we ran it was a 3-3-5. So obviously three down guys, 3 stack backers, and then 5 DBs. So I was the 5th guy, and I had a lot of freedom to kind of roam. And Fred played that spot his sophomore, junior, and senior year, and then I got slid back there my senior year. So that was it was like a hybrid linebacker safety. It's the best position. You play at 7.5, 8 yards. You don't ever get blocked. You get to kind of float in coverage a little bit and just kind of play off feel. It's the best position in all of football. And you get to learn a little bit, because when I was playing backer, you just get so used to playing in coverage, everything kind of 12 to 15 yards and up, versus that adjuster position. You're dropping into a third. I didn't do that a whole lot, but we kind of did it in training camp a little bit. I slid down and played some hook curl stuff, some match zone type defenses. But it just gives you a different perspective, and it kind of helps you understand how the whole picture kind of comes together and how all the pieces work. Just seeing it from the back end gives you better perspective on how things work in the front end.
Yeah, no question about it. And that's always been what everybody talks about, is your instincts, your athleticism, obviously, be able to do that, but your instincts, seeing it before it happens. I can remember playing against linebackers, in college and in the NFL, where, you come with line of scrimmage and they call the play out. Mm-hmm. Coming off tackle here, this going to motion, they're going to do this. It's like, oh man, you're thinking, what kind of, and that, I can see you doing that. I can see that being you. You're seeing it before it happens. You don't take any false steps. I mean, you're downhill right away. Was that, did you take big pride in that, instincts and then recognition and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, you have success with something. So, when I was in high school and college, we watched a lot of tape. Spec watched a lot of tape with us, had a couple guys at BC that I watched tape with. And, you start to see things fall into place how you see them on tape. And, you put a lot of time in, you put a lot of effort in the tape, whether it's taking notes or trying to find tendencies or formation alerts. And the real payoff is in the game when you get a formation, you get a down and distance, you get a personnel grouping, and you've seen it on tape, you've seen it in practice, and then boom, they run it in the game, and you've already kind of played that scenario in your mind. And I had a lot of success on it in high school, a lot of success on it in college, and then I kind of transitioned it into the NFL. And I think the thing that was so fun for me in the NFL is the amount of information that's at your fingertips on your computer. You can break stuff down however you want. You can break it down personnels, formations, down and distances, scenarios in games, quarters, 4-minute situation, 2-minute. You literally have every situation you want at your fingertips. And for me, you make a lot of plays in games based off of what you've heard in practice, what you've seen on tape with coaches, what coaches have prepped you on. But I think if you can try to get an edge by experiencing a lot of this stuff on your own, you get into the game and something that, all right, I saw this. They played so-and-so 2 weeks ago. They were a 4-3 over front like us, big time strong side rotation. You get a formation, a look in a scenario where they've run it before, and then you get that play and you're already one step ahead, and you can make it, the TFL or a minus yardage play, or get a hand on a ball in a passing situation. It's all worth it. So you put a ton of time in during the week, and if you can make, 5 or 6 plays during the game that you've learned off that individual tape study, I think it's all worth it.
So you have a great career at St. X, and it comes down to Boston College, Virginia, Duke, and Stanford. I think I saw. Is that pretty much it? Yeah. Obviously, all great academic institutions. So you were the epitome of student athlete. I mean, you were interested in the academics as well. Obviously, why BC?
Well, I think a lot of it was I wanted to go to a school that I wouldn't have been able to get into without football, and I wasn't getting into Duke or Stanford or Virginia or BC just strictly on academics. I did fine in school, but I was no means a scholar. So I did enough to get into BC. I did enough while I was at BC to be able to play. But, I think there's a big time St. X connection from BC St. X to BC. When I was being recruited. Nick Larkin was there, big time stud at BC. He's got his names all over the weight room for records, and he was up there. And then he was going to leave, so he was a 5th-year senior when I was being recruited, and then he left. And then Alex Albright, who was a big time St. X guys on the '05 state championship team, he was going to be there for 2 years when I was at BC. So he was unbelievable. He was as helpful and as good of an older guy as there could have been, whether it was, schoolwork, football, where to eat around campus and at campus, how to get things done, what it was like for him being a freshman, what it was like being away from home. There was just a big time comfort in knowing that there was a guy at BC that knew where I was from. He understood my background, and we kind of connected on things that were outside of football. So, the BC connection through St. X was big. It was a good academic school. They were playing really good football, and I was being recruited. And I thought Boston honestly was a really cool city, and it was great. So there was a lot of factors. I think the two biggest ones were the academic ability at the school, as well as the St. X connection and having Alex there. So it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I'd go to school there all over again.
I hear you. Boston's great, a great city. I grew up 15 miles northeast of Boston. I know what you're talking about there. So you're a true freshman, and Mark Herzlich, an outside linebacker, gets diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, and you end up going to that outside linebacker starting defensive position. And as a true freshman, 158 tackles, 87 of them unassisted. You led the team, led the conference, second in the nation, and you make the freshman All-American teams, the defensive freshman player of the year. And I mean, your whole career, the awards, I don't know if you have a trophy room big enough. I mean, if you don't have the award, it's not a real true defensive award. I mean, you ran the table on just about anything, but it starts as a true freshman with all of those honors based on your level of play. Were you ever in a transition time of awe, or was it just, I'm ready to roll, let's go?
I didn't really have a choice. It was one of those things where I went up to the spring game prior to my freshman year, and Mark was playing. Mark was in the spring game. I remember talking to the linebacker coach up there when I was being recruited and just kind of talking about the guys. And they were talking about Mark was having like it's either some low back pain or some hamstring pain. And they're like, he's going to be fine. And they're like, he's only going to probably play 10, 15 snaps in the spring game and then he'll be done. So I got up to BC what was it? It was in the summer of that year. I got a call, or I saw it on the internet, that Herzlich had been diagnosed with. It was Ewing sarcoma bone cancer. So,
yeah,
he was out for that season. Mike McLaughlin was our starting inside linebacker for the previous 3 years. He was coming off an Achilles, and then we had a couple other guys. But when I got in the training camp, everybody had their spots already kind of laid out. We had a starting Mike, we had a starting Will, we had a guy slide in for Mark because Mark was playing out in the slot, playing Sam backer. And then maybe a week or two in the training camp, one guy gets hurt, another guy gets hurt, another guy gets hurt. It's like 3 guys got hurt. So now we're down from having 5 guys with Mark and Mac. Those 3 guys get hurt. Now we're down 5. So it's like scraps. It's like me, a couple other guys, and they're like, all right, well, get in there. And it was one of those things where I went up with the older guys for that first inside run drill and just was getting creamed, just destroyed, mauled. They're running power, they're running lead, and I was just getting crushed. And the coach came up to me. He's like, I don't know what to tell you, but you better figure it out because we play in 2 weeks and you're going to have to play. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I kind of get rolling. I'd start doing better. I start to kind of figure it out a little bit. The first game we played Northeastern, which was a Division II school up in Boston. Yep. That game went really well. And then we played like Kent State maybe, or another little bit smaller school. That went pretty good. And then we played Clemson week 3 or 4, and it got mauled again. But I was like, I was fighting. I was playing hard. I'd made a couple plays. And then Matt came back, I think week 4 or 5. And that game, I was playing inside backer. Mac slid back in the inside, so I went and played special teams that game. And then the following week, they bumped me back out to will linebacker. So played Mike early on, and then they bumped me outside the will. And there was definitely a period like the first 3 or 4 weeks, I was just every day just getting mauled. Like I couldn't wait for 7-on-7. I was like, if I can just get the 7-on-7 in like Pascal and even some blitz stuff, I'm good. Like as long as they're not running powered lead or like bounce plays, I'm good. So I would always look at the schedule, be like, all right, 7-on-7 there. We have a break here. And then, all right, special teams, I can do that. So it was like one of those things, like you just kind of have to, just got to figure it out. You get mauled a few times, you realize that sucks, and then you got to figure out another way to get by. So there's a transition period. I think everybody goes through that, or that's what I'm going to tell myself.
So the next year, as a sophomore, the true freshman now that you play,
Yeah.
as a true sophomore, 183 tackles, 110 unassisted, sets a school record, and you had a stretch of like 21 straight games with 10 or more tackles. I mean, you're just consistently excellent. And then in the next year, your true junior year, 191 tackles, 102 unassisted, averaged almost 16 a game. You broke the record you just set the year before. A 3-year time period, 532 tackles. I mean, a tackling machine. That's just unbelievable. And every award, you name a great defensive player that an award is named after, you got it. And let's just hit a couple of them here for your college career. Ronnie Lott, Jack Lambert, Dick Butkus. Dick Butkus, by the way, makes a personal visit to your team banquet to give you the Dick Butkus Award. And he kind of surprised you with that. What was that like when the legendary Dick Butkus shows up at your team banquet to meet you and give you this award because he respects your level of play so much?
I think that's what they do. That's really neat. The Butkus guys, they don't have a big banquet. They come in and personally present it to you. And I think that's so awesome because, you know, it's Dick Butkus, and his son Matthew Butkus is there too. He's one of the best people you'll ever meet. Great dude, loves football, loves the Bears. But when a guy like Dick Butkus comes and presents you an award, I just think it makes it that much more special. He takes the time to do it. It matters to him. And he's one of the greatest to ever play linebacker, physical, tough, part of the Bears. Like you think about Bears linebackers like that. I feel like, you know, you can just go down the list of Urlacher, Briggs, Mike Singletary, Butkus. They got some studs there now, and I'm sure I'm probably missing some guys. But when you think about linebacker, you think about Dick Butkus, and for him to kind of come out and present it was a really cool deal.
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt about it. Let's go to your professional career. You finish, you finished an unbelievable collegiate career. You're the school leader, obviously, in tackles and everything else defensively. You're the 9th pick of the entire draft by the Carolina Panthers. And I heard a story that Cam Newton came to pick you up at the airport. Kind of a cool little story. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah. So when I got drafted, I came down. I got drafted on, I think it was a Thursday night, and then Friday you come down. You do all the media. You meet the coaches you didn't meet on your visit. You kind of just get a little bit more familiar with the city, and they kind of tell you like, all right, now it's time to play football, and they kind of get you rolling on the playbook and this and that. And Cam shot me a text. He's like, hey, I'll give you a call later and we'll go grab some food. And I said, all right, cool. Sounds good. And so I'm sitting in my hotel room when everything's done. He gives me a phone call. I run downstairs, and a red Ferrari pulls up, and I'm like, oh, perfect. It's Cam. It stops right in front of me, and I go to open the door, and it's locked. And I was like, uh-oh, something might be wrong. And then you can kind of see through the windows. You see the person put it in park, and you can kind of hear the doors unlock. And I opened the door, and it was Michael Jordan. So it was kind of my welcome to Charlotte, the welcome to Charlotte moment. And of course, he wasn't trying to have me get in the car. And of course, I opened the door and looked in and introduced myself, because when are you going to have an opportunity to do that again? So that was my welcome to Charlotte, was seeing him. So he's it was fascinating. You know, when you're a little kid, you grew up watching Michael Jordan, and to have that experience was really neat.
At First Star Logistics, we're a very strict company that really puts the pressure on our employees. Breaks What are those?
That's what I'm talking about, Icky. Get the body right, then the mind's right.
You know, gotta get that body right.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Become a star with a chance to earn the highest commission percentages in the industry as a freight broker agent. Check out firststarlogistics.com.
So you end up playing obviously as a rookie in 2012, in unbelievable rookie year. No surprise to anybody. 164 tackles in the regular season. Led the NFL. Led the entire league as a rookie in regular season games. Third youngest recipient ever of the Rookie of the Year award, Defensive Rookie of the Year award. I mean, you're off and running. How was the transition from college football to the National Football League for you?
Oh, I think the best thing for me was having the off-season program. So basically spring ball OTAs, and the speed of the game in the NFL is so much different. I think the biggest difference is, guys in college are big, they're fast, they can move. But guys in the league have been doing it for such a long time. They understand, especially at the offensive line level, they understand angles, they understand, defenses, they understand where they got to get to block you. They're not blocking you where you are. They're going to block you where you're going to be. And they're just stronger, man. Everyone's just bigger and stronger. And so early on in OTAs, it was the same thing as when I was in college. Like, you got to take your lumps early, and you better learn quick. And I think the thing that was lucky for me is they were stuck with me. So they drafted me, they were stuck with me. So I had a little bit more leeway than probably some of the other guys. But, I got up to speed quick. The first preseason game was a little bit rough. And then by the third game, I felt really pretty good. And I didn't play in the fourth game. So you go into week one, you're like, oh, I played great. In the preseason, I improved all throughout the spring and the summer. I'm going to be fine. And that didn't happen. And I quickly realized that the older guys in preseason are just trying to get things tuned up, trying not to get hurt, trying to get their 10 plays in and get out. And then when the regular season comes, it's on. And same thing with Tampa. They were running power. They were running lead. I was slow on my pass drops. I was getting mauled in the run game. And it was a wide awakening for me that this is not the preseason. This is not training camp. This is not OTAs. This is the NFL, and you better bring your A game every play. And so for me, there's an adjustment period. It probably took me 2 or 3 games to kind of really feel comfortable. And then after about week 8 or 9, I was like, all right, I feel good. I feel confident. I'm ready to go. I was having fun. But early on, man, like you gotta figure it out quick, because there's no easing into it. Week 1 comes, and you know how it is. Those guys are there to win. Those guys are there to have a job. Those guys are in contract years. Like it's a different animal. And it took me a second to figure that out, but I took my lumps, and luckily I was able to learn pretty quickly. And a lot of coaches, Coach Rivera was great. Our coordinator was great. Our linebacker coach was great. They were all awesome and very helpful. And they understood the transition of a young guy to slide in and play backer. And, I don't know if I would have been as patient with me if I was a coach as they were with me, but I got put in a very good situation as far as coaches, scheme, and then the players around me that were just awesome. I've always had a really good situation in my football career with that, as far as mentors and coaches and situations. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you're a hell of a student of the game. There's no question about that. So then you really start to take off. 2013, Defensive Player of the Year. Youngest ever to be named Defensive Player of the Year. It's just an unbelievable accomplishment. Then in the 2014 season, so you're the only guy, you and LT, how about this? The only players in back-to-back seasons to get Defensive Rookie of the Year and then Defensive Player of the Year. You and Lawrence Taylor. Pretty good coach.
Yeah, I think what was so good for me in Carolina was the defense that they had set up for us was awesome. We could flow to the ball. We were covered a lot. We were free. We had a lot of flexibility in coverage. They drafted 2 guys in the first and the second round at defensive line in my second year. Starlo Tulele, who's now in Buffalo, and then K1 Short, who played with us. He had I think he had 11 and a half sacks a year, went to Super Bowl. Just big, athletic, powerful guys up front that were just about winning. They didn't care about their individual stats. They weren't look at me guys. It was all about how can we win. And, I played with a guy next to me named Thomas Davis who played the will spot. And we just had such a good connection. We had those two guys in front of us along with a couple other guys that were they were such a problem for offenses that the offense had to block those guys before they got up to us. So a lot of times they were hanging on double teams or worried about them in wide zone looks. That if they didn't block them, then they're going to make the play. So I think, that's what makes football so fun. It's such a team game. And, I think you talk about any linebackers, the best and the most friendly thing for an offense or a linebacker is to have these big guys in front of you that just eat blocks and take up so much space and let you roam. So I was very fortunate in my career to always have big, nasty guys in front of me that just made my job so easy.
So in the 2014 season, you win the Butkus Award for the second time. One of three guys to do that. The other two, Von Miller, Patrick Willis. Man, you're racking up some serious serious awards here, my man. I mean, did you realize that you were in such elite company when you were winning these things, or did you not let it clutter your mind?
I just kind of think, they're outstanding individual awards and recognition, but like I kind of always try to talk about, you don't do that without, a good team, a good head coach, good guys around you, good buddies on the team. The scheme that we had, I thought was just so beneficial for Thomas and I. We had tons of freedom. We had tons of flexibility. We had really good guys in front of us. So, they're an individual award, but I think they really represent your team and your culture and the guys you have on the defensive side of the ball. So I was always very fortunate to have a lot of really good people and a really good situation and environment around me when I played football. And I think that was just kind of a byproduct of it.
As a former player, I know you play hurt. I mean, everybody has to play hurt at some point in time. There's no question. And we have something in common. We had a Super Bowl season. We both played in a Super Bowl but didn't win it. And there's, nothing worse than winning your conference championship, going to the Super Bowl and not winning that sucker. But in those three games, you have a torn labrum and you have 29 tackles, a sack, 4 passes broken up, 2 interceptions taken back for touchdowns, and a fumble recovery to boot. So with a torn labrum on the big stage, the bigger the game, the better you're playing while injured. It's a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I just think that the momentum of that season, you didn't want to be on the sideline watching. It was so fun playing that season. The crowd was into it. The fans were into it. Cam was so fun to watch that year, and you just wanted to be a part of it. So, it's one of those things you just kind of take care of yourself during the week, during practice. You play in the game, and then you just kind of get ready again the following week. So it was just kind of one of those things, you wanted to be out there in the field so bad because of how much fun we were having, how many memories we created, the fans, the crowd, the environments we were in, and just the excitement of knowing like we've got a legitimate chance of being a Super Bowl team this year. And, even though we didn't win it, you still have that experience. You still have, they can't take the fact away that you played in the Super Bowl. And obviously, we would have liked it to go a little bit differently, but, you can never be upset for having an opportunity to play in a Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl season was your first experience with concussion issues. You missed 3 games that year and still racked up unbelievable numbers. And then the following season, you missed some games with concussion issues as well. And then ultimately, your career, 8 years, first guy to get 1,000 tackles, though, in 8 years. You did it in just 107 football games. 1,000 tackles. Obviously, the concussion issues robbed you of a longer career. Take us through the decision-making process. Had to be tough decisions that you had to make there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was multiple factors. But I think, you just kind of think about, you're used to playing the game one way, fast and strong and physical. And, I think the moment you start to kind of second guess yourself and you can't play that same way, I think, you owe it to yourself, but you owe it to the guys in the team and the organization, the fans to make a decision. And for me, that decision came after my 8th year. And I understood that, I can't play the game how I want to anymore. And, I think it was a decision, with a long-term view. You've got a long life to live. Obviously, I love the game of football. I had a ton of fun playing it. I have a ton of passion and enjoyment with it. But, you look around the league and the game comes to an end for everybody at some point, whether it's after high school, college, after your first year in the league, after your 8th year, it all comes to an end. And I think the biggest thing you got to understand is, you got to appreciate the time you did have. You can't, if you look back and say, well, I wish I could have played more, you kind of disrespect all the memories and the relationships and everything that went into those 8 years of enjoyment and fun. So for me, that's kind of how I look at it, with the lens of, I loved my time playing. I loved everything about it. Great situation, great organization, great coaches, great players, great fans. And, that's how I try to look at it, from that lens of how much I enjoyed it and the tremendous opportunity I had.
The thing about you, Luke, that I think separates you as a linebacker, like we talked about, from everybody else, in your career, 67 passes defensed, 18 interceptions. That's just remarkable. I mean, that, to me, I don't think I've ever seen a linebacker that played the run as well as you did, because you had a lot of negative plays. I mean, you're downhill, you're making plays in that running game, tackle for loss, just crushing people, and then be able to do what you did on the other side of it. I mean, that's about as complete a linebacker as ever played the game. When you look at what you did defending the pass, I mean, you would have quarterback ratings for a season of like 45, 47 passes completed in your area, which is ridiculous. You get the best, one year, an award for the best defensive player against the pass of any defensive player in football. Linebacker, safety, corner, you're the guy. I mean, that's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I think what was so good for me is I was a terrible blitzing linebacker, and I wasn't very good at it, and everybody knew it. But the thing that was good for me is that Thomas Davis was fantastic at it. So I got put in coverage a lot because Thomas was so good. We found ways to get him one-on-one with running backs, get him one-on-one with tight ends. We got real creative, and we gave Thomas an opportunity to do what he did really well. And then I was able to drop a lot. And a lot of times, man, we had such a good pass rush in Carolina that we didn't have to cover guys for very long. So, in the middle of the defense, playing on tight ends, you had generally a pretty good feel for route concepts and where they're going to be going. But the timing when I was in Carolina was so good for backers and DBs and safeties. I mean, we had guys, we probably had guys that were 10. We had two guys a year that were 10 plus sacks. So we led the NFL in sacks a couple times. We were top 5 a few times. There was so much pressure on the quarterback that playing coverage was so easy. It was, you read your keys, you played out route concepts, and you would jump threats. And a lot of times if you jump threats and that quarterback looked and came off, he didn't have time to go to 2, 3, 4. So you could play quick, you could play really aggressive, knowing that the ball was coming out. And if the ball was coming out, he was going to get hit. So it was kind of the perfect storm for me in Carolina, both as, a run defender, as a pass defender. Our front was so good my whole time in Carolina. And, I was a byproduct of that. I got put in a lot of good situations. They put me in coverage looks that worked for me. They didn't put me in situations where I wasn't good at and gave them the proverbial figure it out. I was like, all right, well, we know you're not very good at this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not great at that. So let's not put me in that situation on this guy. So I had a great situation. Our coaches were super smart. They understood the game, and they really understood what we were good at as players. And they kind of catered game plans to that.
Luke, when the coaches would do their film study at the end of the year and basically ran totals on defensive plays made and all that sort of thing, one year, 205 tackles you get credit for from the coaches' film. In one game, they had you for 24. The coach's tape showed 26. 26 tackles in one football game. What's the most memorable game in all the games that you played at any, or college, high school, in the NFL, whatever. Is there any game that's most memorable to you?
There was a lot of them in high school, college, and the NFL. The one that always sticks out to me in the NFL was the NFC Championship game. We were playing Arizona. They were the #1 offense in the league. We were playing at home at night, NFC Championship game with an opportunity to go to to the Super Bowl. The energy in the stadium was unbelievable, and we played about as good as we could have that night. And I don't think anybody was going to beat us that night. And just the excitement of that game and knowing as the game progressed, like, we're going to the Super Bowl and we're going to have an opportunity to play in the Super Bowl and we're going to be a part of the Super Bowl. And that thought kind of started crossing your mind and crossing your mind and crossing your mind. But you also understood that the game wasn't over and Arizona could score quick. They could score quick. They could score a lot. And you never really let that thought cross your mind until the very end of the game. And the fans were the same way. There was kind of great energy early. We were scoring. We were getting up. They were into it. And then as the game progressed, everyone was kind of in the sense of the mindset of, can we start celebrating yet? And that's kind of how we were on the sideline. We made a couple big plays at the end of the game, scored a couple more touchdowns. We were up like through probably 4 or 5 scores. And there was like 2 minutes left, and then it just started. And it was, once it started, it didn't stop. And, you know, to have that opportunity to be at your home field with your fans, with your guys, to win the NFC Championship game with an opportunity to go play in the Super Bowl is a special game.
You played against a lot of freakish athletes played against and with. Is there anybody, though, you mentioned Cam, he's obviously a unique individual athletically and physically, but there's a ton of them. Is there anybody that comes to mind like, whoa, that guy was a real problem that you played with or against?
Well, I played obviously with Cam, and he's about as freaky as it gets.
Right.
And then my last 2 years, I played with Julius Peppers.
Oh.
And guy's just great dude, understands the game, but he's 6'7", 300 pounds, and he's like 4'5".
That's great.
And he's 4th on the sack list for a reason. You just look at him and he's just impressive. Everything is proportional. Like, he's just a big man that commands attention, and he's got such a presence that when he shows up, you know he's there. And, you know, Cam, Pep, we had a couple other guys that we played with, but those 2 guys are the guys that stick out, and you know, wow, that guy is just impressive from a physical stature and athletic ability.
So in retirement, you had, I mean, the football world's your oyster, my man. I mean, coaching, broadcasting, whatever you might have decided to do, you decide to get into the scouting world and decide, that's not the direction, after a season. Are you still thinking about doing anything football related? Are you thinking about taking that degree that you got from Boston College, the Carroll School of Management at Boston
Yep.
College? That's a pretty good institution, and take that marketing degree and do something business-wise? What's in the head of Luke Kuechly right now?
Yeah. I'm not really sure right now. I'm trying to just kind of take some time and try to figure it out. I still love the game of football. I love being around it. I love the learning side, the teaching side. So, I think there's plenty of opportunities to get back in the game, and you just got to figure out what the right way is for you, both, time and situation and location. There's a lot of factors, and that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. How can I get myself in a position where I enjoy what I'm doing, I get fulfillment from it, and just makes sense for me. So, I did the scouting thing last year. I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun. You really get to see what goes on in free agency and the draft and the off season. And it was a blast, but the more I was around it, I was like, what, this is something that's a lot of fun, but I don't know if this is an answer for me long-term. So, I'm just going to keep exploring, keep looking around and see what, kind of comes my way.
Well, you deserve that opportunity. There's no question about it. You look great. You look like
I appreciate it.
You look like you're graduating from college.
I know. I'm trying to stay young, man.
You're looking
trying to stay young.
Looking good. You still working out pretty regularly?
I'm doing my best. Yeah. So last week or so, I haven't done it a whole lot. I got to get back on the horse here and get it going again. So,
well, I'll tell you what. I remember when you were in playing in high school, what Coach Specht had to say about you, and then when you were playing in college, what my nephew had to say about you.
Mm-hmm.
I got a big nephew. You don't remember Rich Lapham?
Of course, yeah.
Big 6'9" beast. He was a big boy. He said that the coaches used to get so frustrated because they would try to just create something in the offense-defense period to confuse you, even if it wasn't in the script, and you never got confused. He said you were the biggest.
I got plenty confused. They just don't talk about those times.
He was like, this guy was the smartest football player I've ever seen in my life. And then to hear Marvin Lewis talk about you in the draft before you came to the National Football League, I mean, he holds you in extremely high regard. He coached and was a part of a lot of good linebackers' career. So there's no question that Luke Kuechly, you had an unbelievably successful football life. And hopefully if it continues in some way, shape, or form for you, I know you'll be the best at it, because that's just the kind of guy you are, my man.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks so much for having me on.
Hi, Dave Lapham here. Have you heard about In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics? Catch new episodes from the world of sports and broadcasting. Search for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts.